Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to my channel. Happy New Year. This is the first video I'm doing for the new year, and I am super honored to have Suzanne Spooner on my channel today. Welcome, Suzanne. I'm seriously so stoked about talking to you today.
Oh, thank you, Sherri. Well, I'm so stoked to be talking with you too. So it'll be fun.
Well, okay, so Suzanne and I have been in similar circles for quite some time, and I reached out and I said, we got to talk. And so I'm happy to have you on. And for those of you that may not know who you are or about your work, can you give us a little bit of a background and then we'll go into details with certain things as we get going.
Yeah. So most people know me through Dolores Cannon and QHHT, quantum healing hypnosis technique, which was Dolores's process that she created. I've been doing it. I think I'm in my 13th year or so. 2012 is when I started, which I love. It's a wonderful exploration through a client's consciousness to find all their answers, all their healing. It's amazing. Excuse me. So that's probably what I'm most well known for. But also, right before I found out about Dolores a few years, I had a process happen to me. It's called the Art of Universal Knowing, or the acronym is TAUK, TAUK. And it is a process of teaching people how to channel, find their own deep answers within. So kind of a similar theme to Dolores. And that's probably why I resonated with her process so much, because I really love teaching people to find their own answers within themselves. So I've been doing that. I decided life wasn't exciting enough. So I and a girlfriend, Sarah Bressman Cosme, wonderful author, created some amazing experiences over in Egypt. So I think we're in our third year of doing those, and it's wild. We kind of tie in past life regression and tapping in and finding your own answers. And Sarah shares her amazing experience that she's gained from her books. And we just take a group of about 40 people and hop all over Egypt and these ancient sites. So that's been pretty fun the last few years.
Well, first of all, I adore Sarah. She's wonderful and I love her work as well. She's been on my channel a few times and she's amazing. And I think your Egypt trips sound incredible. I love looking at the pictures that you guys post on Facebook and Instagram of the trip. So one of these days, I'm gonna be joining you for sure because it
Yay.
looks
Oh,
like
I hope
so much
so.
fun. Yeah, it looks so much fun. Well, okay, I'd like to get into talk and QHHT a little bit, but tell us a little bit about your journey, and I know your dad was a super catalyst for your spiritual awakening, but maybe even before that, tell us a little bit about your journey. I'm so interested in hearing more myself.
Yeah, actually, it's funny that you asked, because I was thinking about it in a different way this morning as I was getting ready. And, you know, um, my first memory is before I was born, and I was having a conversation with God, and we were like in this big space. And we were literally like walking down, I don't know, I guess this infinite room, and picking out my body parts, my legs, my arm, for this lifetime. We were talking about
Yeah.
how this life was going to go. And I don't remember a lot of that talk, but I remember just, listening and like, yep, I got this, I can do it. And I wish I would have picked out longer legs now, but
Right.
it's done. But so I remember that as a child having that conversation. And I actually was pretty intuitive as a little child. I just hadn't really thought much about it. But the funny part was my late father, who I just loved to pieces. I was really tied into him, and probably not in ways that he was appreciative of, because he was kind of a Romeo back in the day,
Mhm.
and the ladies liked him. And he would take me along with him on these little road trips for his business. And I just had a knowing of which ladies liked my dad. And I'm sure I said things to him. I don't think I took a lot of trips with him, and maybe that was the kibosh of that.
So funny.
It is so funny. So I think I've always been really open-minded and inquisitive, and I always wanted to know what was out there, what was out beyond the stars. And And I think that just kind of opened me up. And so, as soon as I could start reading, I was reading ghost stories. And as I got a little bit older, I was into things like Edgar Cayce and Shirley MacLaine. And I just like thinking, bigger than what this world was showing me. And that's probably what kind of got me juiced up and ready to go with the spiritual path.
Yeah, that sounds, I mean, so when you talk about your first memory, is that something you literally consciously remember as a child or through meditation that was as like a regression as far as you went or
No, it's I would tell my mom about it when I was
oh,
a little girl. And to this day, I mean, I can go right back there anytime. It's so vivid to me. Um, so I've always carried that with me. Um, and I remember I remember being in my crib and it was a sunny day and my mom had the window open and watching the curtains blow with the wind. And it wasn't until, I don't know, maybe I was a teenager, I was telling my mom about that. And my crib was in my parents' bedroom. And so I could tell her where all the furniture was. And she's like, yeah, that's where everything was. So I don't know. I just, I kept something with me a little bit
yeah.
coming through.
Well, and that's a good tie into the theme of this conversation. And I want to explain it a little bit because I think, the word consciousness is kind of a buzzword and it's kind of a new age anchor. But it's really so far beyond that. The new age movement can, in many ways, is created a nefarious aspect undertone. Uh,
Right,
but truly, our consciousness is the root of everything, and there's so
right.
much to be understood about it. And I don't think that we really understand half of it. We maybe even a fraction of what it means and our capacity. And why I admire you so much, Suzanne, is because from a young age, I was always inquisitive, but I had this knowing that I was here to help people. Even when I was a little girl, I could make adults cry, and I don't mean in like a mean way, but I would have such deep conversations with people. And next thing you know,
Right.
they'd be so emotional and they would start to tear up and they're looking at me like,
Oh,
how is this little girl talking like this? And I remember that and wanting to like, what do you really what do you really feel, Suzanne? And are you truly happy? And I would ask these types of questions. Probably thought I was a little bit nutty, but I have always felt like I wanted to bring things out of people. And I think the nature of my work is very similar to the nature of your work. And it's all about helping people like go in deeper,
Mhm.
dig in deeper. And that's the consciousness. It's really infinite. So that's kind of the theme of our conversation today. So I'd love to pick your brain a little bit. And actually, maybe we could talk a little bit more about TAUK because I never heard about that until I was researching more of your work. And I'd love to kind of get into that a little bit.
Yeah, that was such a fun experience to kind of birth because I had no idea what was going on. There's a little bit, I think I'm losing my mind, but let's check it out. So, so I was, on my path and, I had great friends that were, into spirituality and that. Um, One of my dear friends taught a class called Spiritual Response Therapy, SRT.
Okay.
And my other girlfriends had already learned it. And I'm like, oh, I'm listening to what they're doing and they're using all these charts and they're clearing energy and they use a pendulum. And I'm like, oh, that sounds kind of cool. I think I want to learn. And so when my friend offered the next class, I signed up. And at first I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so complicated. There's so many flipping charts. And I thought, I don't know if I'm like smart enough to be able to get this, but it came really natural to me and I enjoyed it. So I was using a pendulum, I was using these charts. So one day it was in the morning, my husband had gone to work, my kids were at school, and I was just sitting in our kitchen. Um, and I could just feel the presence of my dad. And he had been a suicide back when I was about 25 years old. And so this was quite a bit later. It's probably close to 40-ish at the time. And, but I could feel him, and I'd felt him in dreams. I knew the feeling. And I'm sitting there holding this rose quartz pendulum and thinking about, interesting. And so, I could do yeses and nos, of course, with the pendulum. So I just said, I was kind of like bracing myself, which is really funny because I'm like obnoxiously optimistic. So I'm not usually one to try to tamp things down, but I just braced myself and I just held it out. And my yes direction is this way. It's kind of opposite from most. But I said, is there anybody in the room with me? I didn't want to get my hopes up. And not only did it go yes, but it like went yes so much it was like kinking the chain.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, cool. Think on this. And I had some paper and pen beside me as I'd been doing some SRT practice. And so I was looking through all these charts that SRT has, but it's not about communication, it's about clearing things.
Mhm.
And so nothing looked appropriate. So I thought, well, gosh, I could just draw a letter chart. And then the very next thought that came through was, "Ooh, yuck! I don't want this to be like Ouija."
Right?
And then the very next thought that came smashing right after that was, "Stop! Just put out the highest good for the best intention and see what happens." And I'm
Mhm.
like, "Yeah, I could do that, I guess." And so I drew a circle, and it was so crappy. I have it at home somewhere. It is the crappiest letter chart because I cannot even draw straight
Yeah.
lines. But I got the letters around, and I'm like, okay, this probably won't work. Again, completely not me. And I held my pendulum over the center of that chart, and it starts to spell out a message. And I'm like, what? Like, am I like, I knew the feel of the pendulum at that point. So I wasn't like making it move. You actually can't do that. That's too hard. But I had that paper and pen close by. So it would spell out a few words, and I would put it down and I'd write it down. And it's on my website. I think it starts out like, "This is it, ready to begin, able to measure something into another consciousness, begin soon."
Okay.
I'm a little bit off on that, but it's close.
Mhm.
And I put the pendulum down and went, "What the heck was that?" Like, did I like those, none of those thoughts were in my head. I had no concept of any of that at that moment. And I just had to think on it for a while. And, I was thinking, well, it's probably an anomaly, it probably won't happen again. And later I sat down again and again to prove it wouldn't work because I didn't know what in the heck I was going to do with it if it did work.
Right?
And I sat down, I held the pendulum over the chart, put out the highest intention for the greatest good. And it spelled out, "Hi, Zippy." And Zippy's my dad's nickname for me since I was a little one.
Uh-huh.
And I tell you, my cheeks feel like they're going hot now. I mean, my cheeks just
Oh.
went so red. It was like a heart explosion. And it was a short message, just 3 lines, "Hi, Zippy, love to mom," which was my mom. They were divorced, but they were great friends up until the end of his life.
Mhm.
And our Labrador Jack was sitting beside me, and he says hi to Jack.
Oh.
I'm like, "Oh, hey, like, are you here?" And I'm like, oh my gosh. And my dad and I had the coolest relationship where we'd have lunch once a week when I was in high school and college. And we talk about the most esoteric subjects. And I don't think he ever really shared that with a lot of other people. And so I love those conversations. I've always missed those. And I just knew because of the dream visits that I'd had with him that if there was a way that we could figure out a communication path, we'd do it. And I just thought, oh my goodness, I think we did it. I think we've just done it. And at that point, every time I'd sit down, he'd come through and he'd have another message. And I would start to feel comfortable to ask questions, about his death and, how was it when he passed over? Because, a suicide has just so many sad thoughts attached to it. And I just, my heart of hearts wanted to know, how did he do through that? And he explained it in such a heart healing way. And I was able to share that with my sisters who were open to it and my mom. And
Mhm.
those messages changed them, it helped. And so that is how it began in my kitchen.
That is such a beautiful story. And these things are so heartfelt when they have such deep meaning and impact. And I think that that's a lot of our journeys is we come in and we experience certain things and we go through certain traumas and good and bad and indifferent, but they propel us to have heart in something that we are creating because it's so meaningful and you have such a passion for it that it drives you to then teach it or share it. And then the impact that has on the world around you is it's exponential, you know,
Yeah.
when that occurs. So basically the art of universal knowing is pendulums and charts. Um,
Yeah, just a letter chart. It's just a teachable method of channeling, and I'm not even sure if that's the right word, but that's the word I use.
yeah.
And when after so I start working with it, others start coming through, my grandmas and my my friends that have passed and all that. It was just flipping amazing. And so my grandma had come through, and she was like this pretty cool chick back in the day, like back when my grandpa was at in the Korean War.
Mhm.
She opened up her own restaurant, which, for a woman to do that back then was, in a small Iowa town was not really heard of. She was kind of just a large and in charge lady, got things done. And so she started coming through and giving me messages. And she says, she's the one that named it. She's the one that gave me the name. She says, because I was wondering, am I doing SRT? Is this, something else? I don't know what it is. And she says, what you're doing is called the art of universal knowing. And I went, whoa, I like that name. I don't know what it is, but I like it. And she says, you're going to be teaching this to others. And I'm like, oh, that's so funny because I have no idea how I'm doing this or how to teach this. It's like, that's
Yeah.
good. Awesome. Thanks. And, but what would happen is, they would plant the ideas in me, little seeds, and I'd be driving around in my car, which is kind of my thinking spot, and I go, yeah, if you did it that way, and maybe if you added in this, or maybe if you changed that, maybe that would work. And kind of building up the steps of how to teach it. And
Mhm.
then I would go home and I get in front of my chart. It's just a letter chart, and they would be like right there going, okay, right, if you want to change it that way, that's fine, but then add this in or change it to that. And
Mhm.
I'd be like, yeah, that makes great sense. So when I thought I had all the steps down, I had started to tell a few of my girlfriends, what was going on, kind of to gauge, do you guys think I'm nuts or do you think this
Right.
is like legit? And they're like, no, this is so cool. And I said, okay, so I had my very first person, my best friend that wanted to learn how to do it. And I'm like, okay, no, no guarantees. This might totally flop, but I think I got the process down. And so I walked her through the process, and she at the end held her pendulum over the chart. And we're both like, oh my gosh, will this work? And it starts spelling out a message. And I'm like, oh, like I think this is going to work. And so at first I was just teaching people one-on-one that heard of it. And then I figured out this needed to get bigger. So I created an online class, and that's what is going to this day. And it's fun to see. I have a little forum on the class for the people that take it through the online class. And so they'll share their messages and,
Oh, that's so good. What a great idea to have them share their messages. So is it
yeah.
pre-recorded so anyone can take it anytime, or do you offer it at certain times a year?
Nope, it's pre-recorded. Anybody can
Okay.
take it at any time. The funniest part of that was I had recorded it way back in the day, like in 2009, and it kind of needed to be updated. And so, of course, I decided the time that we're going to update this is in the pandemic, which made it just totally hard to do because my producer is in Chicago. I'm in Des Moines, and he couldn't travel. So I traveled to Chicago, and I didn't have my beautiful office to film in. We had to film in, I think it was like a Comfort Inn and Suites.
Oh. I'm sure you made it work out.
It's all right. It's
Yeah.
the ambiance is not what I wish, but the class is
The
really easy
content
to
is what
follow,
matters.
and it's easy. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
once you do it, you're in, you've got it.
It's funny when I look at my journey, pendulums were one of the first methods or techniques that I used to learn.
Mhm.
And I remember I took a class through a mentor that I still have today. probably 15 years ago on how to use a pendulum, and I fell in love with it. It was one of those things too where we just had a piece of paper with a circle and in it, and she passed I didn't have a pendulum back then. She passed it around to everybody their own pendulum. You can choose from, box that she had. And we were instructed, and what's your yes, what's your no? And I'm sitting there, and I probably had this giddy face, like a child that is like lighting up, like they're seeing this toy that they love for the first time. And I like had this grin, I think, on my face. And she came over and she took a liking to me, and she could see how excited I was because apparently, out of everyone in the class, mine was like it was going crazy, like it was like about to fly across the room. And
Yes.
what? And I was so genuinely excited about the process that I like went crazy with it, and I studied and I taught, and it was such a huge part of my awakening and my process of connecting and getting answers for myself, for my higher self, or my guides too. So big fan. But I have a question for you though. Because of everything that's happening since the pandemic period, specifically with just mass awakenings and people discovering that a lot of what they've learned is a lie, just it all. There's a lot of nefarious energy out there, and I stopped using my pendulum about 4 years ago because I could feel a lot more interference, and I started having my clients say that they're getting bad messages, and they're feeling like the pendulums weren't working anymore, and they were getting like dark messages. And I was like, you know what? Maybe it's best you just put it down for right now because we don't know, if we're not really sure what to do. We got to just take precautions. And I feel like things are lightening up recently, but what are your thoughts on what I just mentioned? And how can people who are newer to this, or maybe have been doing it for a while, how do you teach them to protect themselves or to ensure the information coming through is for their highest good, other than the intention that you're putting forward? Are there other tips and things like that you offer?
Yep. Yeah, we talk about this in the class quite a bit, because that fear is, it's a lot of people have that kind of embedded in their life experience. So I like to address that right away, because I want everybody to have the best experience possible with talk. So so what I tell people is when you're doing this work of talk, you can imagine you're kind of like a bright light in a dark room, and it's going to cause notice
Mhm.
around you energetically, right?
Right.
And it's just being noticed. It's not like anything, nothing nefarious, just notice. And they want to know what's going on. So what I tell people is, I mean, number one, it's intention. I mean, when you start, I recommend that they do a little bit of meditation, get their, kind of in that heart focused area. And I just envision like a nice little white capsule of light going around me to protect. I'm never worried about any of it, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But when they start getting their messages, I tell them, if anything sounds inappropriate, unkind, if their gut just doesn't feel right about it, then it's one of those, I guess I'll call it a lower energy, just kind of interfering.
Right.
And I call it the hang up the phone method. As soon as you feel that, just put
Right.
the pendulum down, hang up.
Mhm.
Don't do that. Who are you? And
Yeah. Yeah.
what I thought you were, God, but you're sounding kind of bossy. Don't entertain, because they feed off of energy. So hang up the phone and cut the energy cord, right? And then I just tell them, go out and do something that you enjoy. Go out and be in nature. Go get something to eat. When you feel ready, come back and sit down, clear your space out, and start again. And it will probably just start up just fine. Some people never have problems with that. Some it might come up. So the hang up the phone is the best method. Just cut the cord. Now, I have had a few in the day of, okay, let me think of a good example.
Yeah.
Um, I had one once. I was receiving a God message, a really beautiful message, but it felt a little weird or off at one point. It's good at the beginning, and then it started not feeling right. And so I took my pendulum off the chart. I cleared my space. I put it back on, and it spelled out that this really wasn't God. This was,
Mhm.
somebody that was just curious about what I was doing, so to speak. And they were having fun with me. They're, tricksters, like, and I said, okay. I said, what are you doing? Like, what do you, I entertain, what are you hanging around here for? Because I have
Right.
no fear towards it at all. I'm just curious. And it said, well, I'm kind of stuck. I don't know what to do here. I don't think I'm in my body. I don't know what to do. And I saw this light and I wanted to see what was going on over here. And I said, okay, fair enough. I said, well, are you feeling like you're kind of done with not knowing where you're at? And would you like to go home now?
Mhm.
And it spelled out yes. I'm like, all right. I said, however you're perceiving things, you're going to see light. Just go into the light and you're going to, do whatever you need to do, but go with what feels right to you. And you can be out of this kind of limbo experience if you want to. And it ended that message, and I kind of, did that and, went about my day. And it was a couple weeks later, I was like doing another message, and I asked, who wants to come through, and this spirit came through and said, I want you to know that I was the one that you helped cross over, and I just wanted to come back and thank you. I'm like,
Oh,
oh, you're so welcome. I'm
oh,
happy.
that's,
I'm so happy to help you, and I hope, I wish you well, and, you
yeah,
know, and that was enough. So, if you don't engage in fear, it tampers that energy down. It's when we get whooped up in fear that it gets, way blown out of proportion, and you can't trust the message. And
yeah,
but I like, I'm just kind of over the whole fear thing. So I'm not a good receiver of that.
yeah.
So I stay really neutral and in my heart, and I have really good results.
Yeah, this is why I really enjoy talking to you so much because I say tell people the exact same thing. It's the fear element is how they hook you in. And if you have pure intention and you sometimes I'm so lighthearted about it that they get bored with people like that have that mentality because then they
Yeah,
can't really get anywhere and then they move on. Because
right.
like it's not gonna work. Or sometimes I'll have to feel trickster energy around me and I'll stub my toe or I'll drop my glass and they want us to get angry and then throw something and you know what I do? I just laugh. I literally I'm like, oh, whatever. And I laugh. I start laughing and giggling and
Yes.
and they go away immediately.
Yes.
And now
Yeah.
I just giggle all the time. Like I probably look silly, but that's really what it is. It's about stepping out of fear. And of course using discernment. And the more clear-minded we are and the more neutral we are, the easier it is to do that. Right? I mean, it's not always easy to do. I'm sure for those of you watching, they're like, oh, easier said than done. But it really does take practice. And our discernment right now is being tested, I think, beyond what we could have ever imagined. And that leads me to QHHT. I respect QHHT method so very much. My mother and I were both taking classes because she's like me. She likes to learn as much as possible. And she started she's a level one practitioner. She was taking
Okay.
her classes while I was taking a course called hypnobirthing to help women
Okay.
have natural childbirth using hypnosis. So I had to become certified in hypnosis in order to do that class, right? So she's learning Dolores's method. I'm learning a method called transpersonal hypnotherapy. We're coming together, sharing our notes, and we're like, this is like the same thing. This is pretty cool. Different, but similar. And then
Yeah.
she's helping me with hers. I'm helping her with mine. And then we end up taking the master level transpersonal hypnotherapy together. And it was really fun to learn about Dolores. And I've read like almost half of her books. There's so many of
Yeah.
them. And it's so amazing that I think you work with her daughter, Julia, right? And tell us a little bit about your QHHT journey
Yeah.
and I'm sure you have a lot of crazy stories of
Oh, I
clients that
do.
you worked with. I mean, tell us something.
Okay, so I heard about Dolores in about 2011 or so and was just curious.
Hmm.
Of course, like a lot of people that had listened to her, read her books, I wanted to have a session with Dolores, and I wasn't doing hypnosis at all, ever. And so I called the office, got on her list. It was a couple years out, and just kind of looking through her website, I saw that she taught how to do this. I'm like, whoa, that'd be pretty cool. And at that time, I'm still into this woo-woo stuff. Talk has already happened. but I'm selling real estate, and which I like, but I'm not a real good corporate person.
You
I
don't
don't do
seem like that type.
I was really good showing houses. I did not
Yeah.
like corporate BS at all. So I had a low tolerance there. So I decided I want to take this class, and I'm in Iowa, she's in Arkansas. So it was a drive, but it was doable. And so I thought, well, what the heck, let's go try it. And it was a week-long class. She was flipping amazing. And I was just trying to absorb everything that she was saying. She's oh my God, I just loved her. She looked just like my grandma Nettie's, which was just, I think she looks like everybody's grandma. I think that's the attraction that her vessel had to so many, so trustworthy. And so I went home and I started practicing. I started having just jaw-dropping, amazing sessions. I was so impressed with the process. And shortly thereafter, I was asked to assist Dolores and Julia, which was like the end all be all for me, because I'm a repetitive learner. If I can sit in the back of the classroom and just hear her over and over, and then have some private moments with her to ask, specific questions. I mean, it was the best. And so I was so blessed to be able to do that for the last 2 years of her life, and I get to know Julia, her daughter. And then when Dolores passed, and things kind of settled down a little bit, Julia and I kind of picked up her around the world schedule of teaching, which was an amazing experience. That took me, to China and to Australia and to Europe. And it was amazing.
Oh,
So, I mean, it was early on, I just had such a deep respect for what she was doing and how she was helping people, and how, her process was so beautiful to me, because it wasn't her or her practitioners giving the answers to the clients. It wasn't Dolores or her practitioners doing the healing. It's just helping the client get into that deep, deep state of relaxation or hypnosis, that they were able to access all this information that we've all had. We've all had the ability to do it, but we purposefully, up until recently, have been kept from knowing about it or validating it, to keep us in confusion, because that keeps us in control.
yeah.
So we're in this really cool period of time where people are waking up to understanding that there's so much more than what they've been told or what they believed about themselves. And Dolores was just this amazing way shower into all of this information. And I owe so much of gratitude to her and her following her path, so I could hop on and help on my path.
Yeah. I mean, such respect for Dolores Cannon, and I adore her and her work, and I'm so grateful. I didn't get to meet her in person like you, so that's just life-changing. That's incredible that you were able to not even just meet her, but work with her and learn from her. And we're going to be repeating her name hundreds, if not thousands of years from now. Honestly, I mean, she came
Yes.
with a whammo, as my mentor calls it, of a journey. And she's just, oh my gosh, there are no words to describe. So I love that. I think QHHT has been a great tool for the practitioners to guide people through the stages of hypnosis in order to relax enough so that they can kind of open those doorways to see and regress
Right.
into this, into earlier in this life, all the way back into the womb and or beyond into other lifetimes or in between lives, all of the things, right? What's really cool is what I see is happening now with my clients and just people I know is these spontaneous awakenings and downloads where people are now able to access their consciousness in the awake state, maybe in the alpha state of relaxation, just kind of just barely relaxing enough, like they're at the gym or they're in the shower and they're just kind of in this mild hypnotic state, and bam, I have a memory of another life or flashes. So it's this awakening process is just expedited, I think, and expanding in so many beautiful ways. But QHHT has been such a valuable tool for probably millions of people. Are there any previous sessions that you've had that were just very expansive for you to learn? I'm sure there's so
Oh
many,
my gosh.
many to count, but is there any examples you could give? of
Oh my
anything
gosh.
that's just like, oh, I have to share this.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, I've shared this one before, but it is such a doozy. It is so good. This one, the client's name is Mary, and I have her session out on my YouTube channel. It's just a great one to listen to for about healing. When Mary came to me, well, she called and, or, I can't remember, emailed me and wanted to have a session. And I think at that time, this is a long time ago, I would think I had like a 3-month waiting list.
Mhm.
So she signed up for that, and all is well and good. And she said she had some health issues. I'm like, okay, we can deal with that. So 3 months goes by, and she comes into my office here, and she has 10 pages of health issues that she needs to work through. And come to find out, she's in hospice. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Mary, if you would have told me that, I would have tried to get you in sooner. I didn't realize, you're in the hospice. And she's such a sweetheart. She's like, no, she says, I just wanted to see if I could last long enough to get here. And it was a goal, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just love you. I'm like, okay, we're doing this. And, what she really came for was kind of more like an end of life session. She thought, the doctors had kind of written her off. There wasn't any more they could do for her. So she was just kind of, tying up loose strings about her life. And she'd had a lot of trauma, especially in her marriage. And, there's just some questions she had about all of it. So, oh my gosh, I just love her so much.
Well,
So we do the session, we talk first and get to know one another, and I listen to her life story. And, her story to a great degree was about this very dysfunctional marriage and the cruelty that her husband had displayed to her. And she had told me that when she was a little girl at a funeral for a parent's friend, she realized she had this gift of being able to take people's pain away by touching them. And then that pain would go through her and out, and but they were better. And she knew this because at the funeral, that whoever had lost somebody, I think she had put her hand on their shoulder, and she could feel it go through, and she could see them like, whoa, what was that? So she had this gift, right? Well, her husband at the time was being incredibly naughty, and he was sleeping with everybody,
oh,
men, women. He was doing a ton of drugs, not taking care of his body, not being kind to her. Um, Bad, 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 so bad. But she loves him, and she would take all of the abuse that he was doing to himself. But interestingly, with him, she kept it.
oh,
So, as we get into the session, we realize that's the crux of her health issues. She's got all of his stuff. And so but she loves him. She's in for, whatever it takes so that he doesn't have to suffer. And when I'm talking with her high self, it says, they are soulmates, but he is so off track with this life. And we know that she's taking his pain and his stuff that he's doing to his body and keeping it. And they said, okay, we're done with that gift. Like
yeah.
we're gonna let her do this for others, but no more can she do it for him. That's done. Like she can try, it won't work. And they said, and watch out because he's going to see a rapid decline in his health
Mhm.
because now he's going to have to deal with what he's doing to his body. Um, so that was interesting. So, so her biggest health issue that what put her into hospice was she has a ballooning both descending aorta and ascending aorta. The descending aorta had been dealt with surgery, was doing okay. But she was in such a precarious health situation that her ascending aorta could not be operated on. They can't open her up.
Mhm.
And then she just had a plethora. The whole body was just in dire straits. And she kind of was a medical mystery that she had survived this long with so many serious health issues. So as we do in a QHHT session, we do a scan of the body. They already have a list of questions about their health. Hers lengthy,
Uh-huh.
um, that we go through to find the answers. And so we're going through the body scan, and the high self is tending to the heart, and it says yes, her heart is enlarged. We knew this. And they said, but she came in with a high capacity to love. And we're going to let that enlarged heart stay as it is. It's not going to be anything that causes her problems. We're okay with that. And we're going to look here down at the descending aorta. And we know that she has had surgery. And it was just so funny because it says, yeah, they didn't do as good of a job as we would have done. So we're just going to go in there. We're going to repair a few things in that
Oh,
descending aorta. And I'm like,
okay.
great. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I'm taking notes as, they're going through this heart area, and they say, okay, we're on the ascending aorta, and this is where it's really precarious. And so we're going to wrap that ascending aorta with a material from another planet, you know, blah, 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 blah. Okay, that's done. Let's go to this next area. And I'm like, what? What did you just say? You're gonna wrap it with what? And I have to, I'm letting it finish up where it went next in the body. And I'm like, hey, wait, can we go back to that ascending aorta? What did you just say that you wrapped it with something
Yeah.
from? And they go, yeah, another planet. It's a fabric. It's woven on a golden loom. It's lighter than air and stronger than steel, and it
Wow.
will and it will hold that ascending aorta so that she can do what she's meant to do here. And they said we've tested it on a few humans and it seems to be doing well. So she's a good candidate, and we're going to use that material. And if a surgeon's knife were to touch it, it would shatter the knife. It's so powerful. And I'm like, I love what I do for a job. Like, this is so
Crazy.
cool.
Yeah.
And 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 they said, oh, by the way, she thinks that she's coming in for this session because she's at the end of her days and she just wants to get clarity before she passes. But we
Yeah.
are here to say she is just beginning what she
Yeah.
came here to do. And she has got so many medical records. And we see her going in front of medical students and doctors and holding her records up and saying, I healed myself.
Wow.
I healed myself. I healed myself. And she is going to be a teacher to the doctors about other ways of
Mhm.
doing healing. So powerful. So that session, I think, was close to 10 years ago. She's doing well. Not, that life has been perfect and easy since the session, but she's well aware of how she's created these things. She did, after a little bit of a rocky time, end up getting a divorce from her husband, and it had a new type of life, her own
Yeah.
freedom. And so that has been wonderful to
You
see.
still have
So
contact with her?
every once in a while, yeah, she'll reach out about once a year
Oh,
or so, and I love to hear from Mary. So I think if you go to my YouTube channel, if you type in like Marvelous Mary or Magnificent Mary, that's it. Suzanne Spooner and Magnificent Mary, it should pop right up. It's a awesome session to listen to.
oh my gosh, I gotta go check that out. I'll put your information below so people who are watching this can go and find all of those. I think you touched on so many amazing things in that session that you just shared with us, and thank you, because I was on the edge of my seat, like, why, what happens next, what happens next? But I'm a firm believer for so many reasons that these things are possible. And I also believe that we have soul contracts with, there's no accidents, and you potentially had a soul contract with her to help her discover that, so that she could have that miraculous healing and move forward and have this new life. And then you're sharing it with others to help them see the potential. I mean, there's the network is quite large, even with the two of you, if you expand it out. And that's our capability. That's what the collective is all about, is the connection that we don't realize that we have, but now we are starting to see, and we have the potential to heal ourselves. And a lot of it is emotional based. And there's so many changes coming, that the work you do and the work of so many that do similar things, not just not just hypnosis, meditation, sound healing, frequency healing, all sorts of methods of healing are coming forward right now to show people the plethora of ways that we can not only heal, but tap into our consciousness, which is infinite. And the
Yes.
potentials are infinite, right? Like we said, I think it's just a word to describe so much that we don't even understand fully. Um,
Yeah.
are you seeing anything in your sessions recently? Because I know a lot of people have felt a huge shift in the last 3 months and 2025. I mean, what I see is just a comet of potential, just explosion of so many incredible things. Are you seeing any evidence of that in your sessions? Are your sessions changing throughout the years to show more growth as a collective? And do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, are you seeing things
Yeah.
like that?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let me go back. Let me go back
Okay.
to my beginning and what I was hearing from the high cells, and then I'll take it set to current.
Okay.
So here's funny. Okay, so 2012, that's when I did this, right? So it's juicy year, like
Right.
Mayan calendar, the end of the world, so much going on, right? And so when I got back home from that class and I'm working with my friends, and I had a few that were just amazing, deep subjects. And so we did a lot of sessions, and I really kind of really quick fell into this love of interviewing the high self. I wanted to know what it knew, and I wanted to know everything. And, of course, 2012, we're at, what's going on, what's going to happen with the earth and with everybody on it. And they would say things like, oh, it's going to get weird. It's going to get really, really weird. And we're like, oh, yeah, sure. Like earthquakes and tsunamis, like that weird. And they'd be like, well, you guys are all creating it as you go. So we can't really tell you what you're going to create, but it's just going to not seem normal. And we're like, okay, okay. So, you know, go up now to the end of, I'm starting this week, just my first sessions into 2025. So the end of 2024 sessions, I tap in, at the end of the session after we're done answering the client's list of questions to just say, so how are things going from your perspective? How's the planet doing? How are we doing? Things are looking a little crazy out there. And they'd say, right on track. Everything's on track. It's exactly how it's supposed to be happening. Again, you guys are creating it as you go. So, we don't have on this date, this is when everything's going to go down or not. But they said, we'll go back to fear again. They say, your outside world looks really crazy right now, and it's getting crazier. Now, why that is because individually humans are deciding to look at what they think about fear. Um, if they're feeling like, oh my gosh, things are really bad out there, and I'm just gonna just, hide in my house and stay away from all of this, you're kind of building that fear up. Um, if you're one that kind of looks at the TV and goes, yeah, I'm kind of like over it, like I don't, I'll listen to what they say, but I'm not going to guide my life by what the TV tells me or what they say, or what my friends may or family may be saying. I'm going to think for myself. Well, then you're going to have a whole other experience. So they said, it's always best to be an observer to what's going on in the outside world and not tie your emotions into a lot of it,
Mhm.
especially the fear-based stuff. And that was coming in very strong as COVID was locking in. That this is an opportunity for people to start waking up. They'd say, the good news is people have some time off and they're going to start diving in deep into topics that they hadn't looked at before. It's going to make them start questioning things. They won't be quite as governable as they have in the past. They're going to start thinking more on their own. They're going to realize that they can tap in to get their own guidance instead of letting authority guide them. And that was huge. I mean, it didn't feel well while we were going through it all, but I think we can all look back on that time now and go, wow, that was really actually super important.
Yeah,
Because so much of us woke up during that time and really questioned everything.
absolutely. I agree with everything. And it's the ebb and the flow. of the awakening process, I think, right now. And one thing I've learned, because I haven't always been positive person. I've always, for a lot of my life, I was the glass half empty, pessimistic, like, that's just how I was because I think the life force was just sucked out of me.
Oh,
Um,
shoot. I think we just locked
did
up
we freeze
there.
up? Can you hear me okay?
Oh, Sherri, if you can hear, oh, there, you're back.
Okay,
Okay.
okay. Yeah, we've got a little bit of interference on both sides, so I apologize if you guys are having trouble hearing us. What I was saying is that I was so pessimistic for so long, and I think it was the birth of my children. Each child that I had made me more positive, and my heart that was closed off started to open a little bit more and more and
Yeah.
healed. And I truly can say that today I am way positive. Like I feel like I'm always like everything's gonna be just fine. And I really am not in fear. And I have a generally positive attitude most of the time. And I'm like, everything's gonna work out. So I don't really live in fear at all. And
Yes.
I might have moments of it. Generally, it has to do with things that are out of my control, like something like I'm worried about my child, my children or something, like or an animal,
Mhm.
one of my animals might be not doing well, something like that. But for the most part, I just feel like everything's always it's going to be okay. And even if it
Yeah.
isn't for a while, I know in hindsight I'm going to look back and say, "Oh, this made sense." So I try to think about what am I learning? What's the purpose of this right now? And I feel like I've been really trying to guide my clients and people, especially parents, through their children's challenges to like try to look at things from a neutral perspective, like go macro, try to look at
Yeah.
everything out here. Because when you're too close, it's really hard to see the big picture. And I
Exactly.
think that a lot of people are starting to do that this year. And then the potential grows because the farther back you look, the more you see you have a lot more options than you realize,
Right.
right?
Yeah, and
Oh,
it's not all quite as serious and awful as, as you can get yourself tied into it with. But,
yeah.
and the other thing here that I think is really interesting about humans is, it so helps not to judge others because, some people are in the thick of it, say they're working in Washington, D.C., and they're like in the thick of the politics, and they're, yelling about this and yelling about that. Like, okay, I could never do that job. It would like suck and drain my energy in 1 second. So, but I'm grateful that there's somebody that's their jam, and they can create and do whatever they need to over there for the collective to learn something that we
Mhm.
need to learn. And I'm not, I've got a niece that's an emergency room doctor, and I've got a daughter-in-law that's a nurse. Like, you don't want me anywhere near an emergency because I just freeze. I can't do, and I'm so grateful that, they can keep their stuff together, during all these hard moments, but, me, like, hey, let's talk about, your other lifetimes, and let's talk about, expanding your consciousness, and like, that's me, so I really am grateful for everybody that, if we deem them awake or asleep or whatever, everybody, what I've heard in my sessions so often, everyone is exactly where they need to be at that time to learn whatever their soul needs to learn. So we need to kind of just back off a little bit on, how many people are going to wake up and do we have the 100th monkey and all that? It's going to happen, everything's fine. Just like the high cells say, we're right on track.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree 100% wholeheartedly. And it's like, it's really about, focus on yourself. Like, what's your role? Don't worry about everybody
Right.
else and what they're doing and how far along on their journey or if they're awake or not or what president they're voting for and just focus on your growth, your development, your healing and let them be. It's really hard to do, but it's a process. And I think the soul contracts and our roles and responsibilities are important because like you said, some of us are made for certain things and that some of us aren't and it's very humbling to admit I could never do that. I certainly couldn't do a lot of things, but I feel like I'm really good at what I do and that's kind of trying to find your niche, right? That's what it's
Right.
all about.
And then things kind of just unfold for you. I think
Yeah.
that in a, excuse me, in a QHHT session, it's a real common question for people to ask, what's my purpose?
Hmm.
I know I'm here to do something. I don't know what it is, and this is a way to get that nice, deep, profound answer. It might be what they thought it was. It might be completely different, but you hold that information within you. And if you kind of have a clear understanding of what you were meant to do here,
Right.
that helps set forward the best decisions that you can make to fulfill that and not feel like you're just treading water.
Absolutely. Well, what do you recommend? What are your recommendations for those watching this video on expanding your consciousness, trying to get discern and receive guidance for yourself, for
Mhm.
those that may not be able to have a session with me or may not have be able to do QHHT with anybody, or what are some of the recommendations you have for people to start getting into a practice or a routine of expanding their consciousness and ways to do that without the help of somebody else?
Yeah. Oh gosh. And that's the most empowering part is doing
Yeah.
it for yourself, right? So what I always recommend is, get yourself into kind of a quiet place, where there's not a lot of activity around you. Do a few deep breaths, whatever, listen to music that you like that just kind of gets you into that calm state. Maybe have written down a question or two that you want clarity on in your life, and don't make it a yes or no, make it a, so it can be a bigger body of an answer. And when you're feeling like you're in a nice quiet state, open your eyes up, pick up your pen or your laptop, and write out the very first thoughts that come to mind. Don't think about it. Don't pay attention to what you're writing. You're just kind of a vessel getting the information through. And just write. And then literally put it away, go do something else. Come back later and take a look at what you read. That's like automatic writing. It's very similar to doing talk. It's very similar to speaking the answers out through a QHHT session, where you just try to get your mind out of that real analytical left brain monkey mind, simply by some deep breaths, and
Yeah.
trust the first thoughts that come to mind and keep going with it. Keep asking yourself more about that answer or something else that you want to know about. The other great time to do that is just as you're waking up in the morning or just
Mhm.
as you're drifting off to sleep, because that's in the theta state. That's where we are in hypnosis or sometimes meditation. And that's a great time to ask, what do I need to know today? Or what should I do about this situation? And trust the first thoughts that come to mind. Now, those are sometimes a little harder to hold on to because you fall asleep, or
Right?
it's like
Yeah.
like a dream, it fades away. So if you can kind of, load up a sheet of paper with a couple questions and then just set aside a little time that's quiet and, practice writing the first thing that comes to mind. The more you do it, the easier it gets.
Yeah, automatic writing is my absolute favorite, and I think it's the easiest to learn and to teach. I love automatic writing, and that was the first method that I channeled ever was
Yeah,
automatic
yeah.
writing, and I was so excited when I got that first like couple sentences. I went to my mentor and was like, "Look, look at I got. Wait, tell me, did I channel this or like did I make it up?" I was like a giddy little kid, and she did her thing, and she was like, "No, this is a message. Like you did it." Great. Congratulations. Now go do more. And
Yeah,
next thing I knew, I had like 5, 6 journals stacked up full of,
yeah.
and I'm like, this is really cool. So
This is so cool.
yeah, it doesn't cost a penny. So I think
And
I agree with you. That's why I like you so much because I think we are so aligned in the way we teach and the type of people we are. And I just love that was your answer because I think it's really empowering for people to be able to receive the answers because the last thing I want, and I know your answer is going to be the same, is I don't want anyone depending on me and feeling like they have to have a session with me because I'm like, no, you can do this yourself. And we all have the potential. Every single one of us has the potential to receive whatever guidance that we could possibly need or anything we could ever want to know. We all have access to that information. That's that consciousness that we're talking about. It's just one word to mean just anything.
Well, as time has gone by, it's gotten easier and easier to tap into that part of us that knows everything. From one of the cool things that I've been able to witness through my work through all these years is, when I started doing this in 2012, and for decades before that, if you were a QHHT client, you probably would have what we called amnesia experience. You wouldn't remember afterwards anything that happened during the session. You couldn't recall a lot. You just kind of checked out.
Mhm.
And and that's how it was for a long time. Now, when I started with Dolores, it was just starting to shift. And even she was trying to figure out what's going on, where clients were starting to feel a little bit more aware. They were remembering more about the session afterwards. And it was this really weird time because she has been such a good teacher that people kind of had thought the golden rule was I don't remember anything. And if I do, then I wasn't under.
Mhm.
But but what we were seeing is that no, they were still getting this really deep information. They just were starting to feel a little bit more aware. And, that was a huge quandary for me. And so that's where I really love to interview the high self about what's going on here with this. And they said, no, 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 it's not a bad thing that people are feeling more aware while they're tapping into this deep space. Um, they're 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 going through a metamorphosis where they're like an evolution of humanity you're witnessing. And the amnesia state was to get them trusting that they had this information inside and that they, weren't making it up, which is a left brain word that devalues
Mhm.
the creativity and the imagination where all this information is at. That's a different conversation. But when they're somewhat aware and they could, kind of take a back seat during the session and go, oh, this is what it feels like when I can allow this information to come through. I can do this. I actually do this, you know, I've done this before. I just didn't know what I was doing. And
Yeah.
so we're to the point, Sherri, where, when I've got clients and they're just sitting down in my chair and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so scared. I won't be able to do this. I'm so worried, this is going to be a big flop. I'm like, oh my gosh, it is like so easy now that literally, if I just had you close your eyes and take a deep breath and I start asking you one of your questions, you're going to come up with a good answer.
Yeah.
And the benefit of today, in a session is that you're just going to be in a super duper nice, relaxed state. You've got a friend sitting beside you to help you all the way through it, and we're recording it. So you don't have to remember anything. It's going to be all there
Right.
for you. And so that's where we're at now. It's where, at a stop sign, you can be thinking, well, what should I do about this? And that thought or that knowing or that belief just pops in. And now we're trusting it more than
Yeah.
way back in the amnesia days. So it
Absolutely.
is, they'll call it, the high selves will call it, it's like, the high selves kind of being able to put on the clothes of a human and, and like, go,
Uh-huh.
oh, yeah, this is
Yeah.
what it's like.
I like this. Yeah, right. It's almost like a video game, we're leveling up, or if you want to use that metaphor where we have the our avatars have the capacity now to do more and more and more. Now you're just closing your eyes and we're getting the answer. And what you said is really important, Suzanne, when you said, you got this friend next to you. And I do think that we do play a valuable role, myself and you and the thousands upon thousands of hundreds of thousands of other practitioners out there that are facilitators is
Right.
we're creating a safe environment for you to explore and feel like you can share or you can put your guard down and you can receive information in whatever method the facilitator is trying to put together for you as a catalyst, and you feel safe doing that. And so some people just, when they're in their homes doing things by themselves for the first time, they're not sure. And then that fear creeps in. So I do
Yeah.
feel like we play a significant role in people's lives to get them going. I'm like, hey, let me just get you going. It's like, like the parent that's helping their child ride the bike, and then you let go and learn. You're like, look, you're doing it all by yourself. And I mean, that was a very elementary way to explain it. I don't mean to make it seem that way because it's much more big. It's bigger than that, but it really can also be as simple as that as well.
Oh yeah, we can make it as simple or
As
as
complicated.
challenging as we want
Yeah,
it to.
it's all how you look at it.
I'm lazy. I just want simple. Let's just figure it
I'm
out and
the
do
most
it
lazy
simple.
person as well. So I'm like, if I'm gonna take a class and it's like a 30-page manual with I'm gonna be like, I don't want to do it. Like make it simple for me. And that's I feel like
Yeah.
my specialty is I simplify everything. Make it really easy. Um,
Yes.
which is why I don't do well in astrology classes because I'm like,
Oh my God. I have like no, like there's nothing in here that understands astrology. Like I am
in one, out the other. Yeah.
like 8 levels below astrology for dummies. And like if somebody starts telling me what house their blah 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 is, and I just like go, ah. So yeah, I
Yes.
cannot.
So you understand me. Like people look at me, they're like, it's not that complicated, Sherri. And I'm like, no, I don't get it. And don't try to explain it to me because I'm gonna forget in tomorrow anyways. And
Yeah.
so yeah. Funny.
I know I'm a Capricorn, and that's the limit.
Yeah. I
I
yes.
don't even know what my kids are. Like I can't even retain what my children are. So I like,
Yes.
yeah, not
Me too.
not not in this lifetime.
Admittedly so. But you know what? We need the people that do that because they're
Yes.
tapping into a whole other level that I'm not on that video game level. So like I
Yeah.
admire their ability and their capacity. Again, everybody has a role to play, right?
Right. Right.
Um, Suzanne, do you have anything coming up this year? I know you have Egypt coming up, but you're already sold out. Do you have anything coming up that you want to share or ways people can get a hold of you?
Yeah. Well, actually, our May trip is sold out. Our
Right.
September trip has just like, I think 3 or 4
Okay.
openings right now.
Okay.
So there's a few, that's always fun, because those groups come together and they're like so meant to be, and they're all long lost friends, and it just coalesces so fast. So it's just fun to see as we wind down and people signing up, like who are the last ones to slide in into home base, like, okay, I'm coming.
Yeah.
So we're at that phase for the September Egypt tour.
Okay.
Other than that, I'm just hanging out in 2025, giving sessions. I've got another grandbaby that's coming into the world, so I'm taking a little bit of time off to kiss on that little baby and help my daughter out. So
Oh,
it's going to be a
lovely.
great year. Lots of good changes in my personal life. I'm very excited for, and I'm super excited to start sessions up again this week and see where everybody's going to go.
Are you booked up through the year or if people are interested in sessions with you, or do you have some available?
I'm actually booked, I think, till the end of 2028 right
Are you
now.
serious?
Serious. It's nuts. Like honestly, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah. So that's a funny, weird deal. It used to bug me. And then I had so many high selves in sessions would talk about that, because it's sometimes like the people would actually put on their list of questions, why did I have to wait so long to have this session? And I'm like,
You know
I'm
what
so
though? It's
sorry.
always divinely
It
guided.
is.
Say the
That's what they
same
said.
thing.
That
People always say that to me too.
the high selves will say, the funniest one was, okay, Suzanne, you think you're in control of your schedule. She
No,
thinks
you're
she's in
not.
control of her schedule. We're in control of the schedule.
Yeah.
And they come in on the day that they're supposed to. So I guess the ones that I'm seeing, there's stuff that needs to keep going on in their life so that they can get the most out of that session, or they can go to have a session with somebody else sooner that can get them in. But there's a lot of
Oh,
practitioners around
there's
the
a
world.
lot of
So
them. Yeah, a
yeah,
lot of great practitioners all over the world. And my mom I don't know if she practices anymore, but right. I mean, it doesn't have to be with you necessarily, but I do believe in the divine timing. And
yeah,
the person that you're meant to work with it will always work out the way it's supposed to. There's never any accidents. And
never any
we always see
accidents.
it in sessions. We'll be like, my clients will be like, I see now why I needed to wait, or I see now why I had to cancel and
Yeah.
reschedule for this day. And like you said, we are not in control of our schedules, even though we like to think we are. And the
Right.
order in which people come through is divinely orchestrated for sure. Definitely.
Yes, absolutely. I get so excited when I'm down here and I'm waiting for the client and they walk in. I'm like, oh, it's your day. This is gonna be so awesome. It's gonna change your
Uh-huh.
life in the best
Yes,
of ways. It's always their day. They needed it to be on that date. So I guess, yeah, it takes a weight off your heart to know everything happens the way it's supposed to, and
absolutely. Well, how
nothing to
can
worry about.
people find you? Your website is suzannespooner.com, right?
Yeah, that's for the QHHT, or if they want to take the TAUK class, that's just $22 to make it super affordable.
Okay.
So that SuzanneSpooner.com is for QHHT and TAUK. AncientLifetimes.com is for the trips to Egypt with Sarah.
Okay.
Then go check that out.
And you have your YouTube channel with some of
Yeah,
your sessions on there.
yeah, I have some awesome sessions on there
Fantastic.
that my clients have allowed me to share that are just flipping mind blowing, and all different types of
Oh,
experiences
cool.
and issues that they deal with. So yeah, you go through a fun rabbit hole going down those sessions.
I bet. Well, thanks for sharing those because I think it's nice for people to be able to see the process done so they are comfortable, they see what it feels like, what it looks like, all of that. I think it's nice to see.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you so much, Suzanne. This has really been such a treasure for me, and maybe we can do a part two sometime later in the year,
Yeah,
and
that'd
we'll
be
get into
great.
more conversations. But it was really, really nice having you on. Thank you so much for coming and joining me today.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for all that you do, Sherri, because it's big work.
Oh, yeah, thank you so much. Well, thank all of you for watching. This is tops the cake for 2025 for me already. So it was really nice
Okay.
to talk to you, Suzanne. Um, so thanks everybody for watching. Until next time, see you guys soon. Bye.